So, if I'm honest, I'm kinda glad I didn't receive a code for this game. You see, I did apply for it, but I never heard anything back. And even though I was a little bit upset that I had to pay the $25 or $22, whatever it was, for the game, I am now glad I didn't ask for a code because I don't know how I'm gonna talk about the game. The game I'm talking about is Animal Well. This is a very interesting, unique, creative Metroidvania, the likes that I don't know if I've experienced in quite a long time or if ever. I'm Nima, let's talk about this game, but before we get into that, please hit that like and subscribe button if you want more game reviews and video game content. Anyway, let's get back into this game where you play this amorphous little blob slash ball that doesn't seem to have any appendages yet can somehow light fireworks and is a whiz with a yo-yo. Let me tell you, when I was a kid, I thought I could get into, working with the yo-yo and being awesome with it. And in turn, I ended up just getting but 3 stitches in my forehead and having a less ability to procreate. We'll put it that way. Not to mention, everyone called me dumb yo-yo kid at school, so 3rd grade was kind of a wash for me. But for this little guy, the yo-yo is just one of many simple little items that he uses in multiple creative ways, and that's part of the fun of this game. One of the funnest things, I should say, is when you come upon an item and you think it has one use, and then you discover it actually has more than that. And it's just like it feels like it's a new item again. You're discovering its capabilities all over again. But regardless if it's firecrackers, if it's a yo-yo, whatever it is, it's never a weapon. And that's the thing that's important with this game. There's no combat. You don't have the ability to really withstand too much damage. And there's quite a few opportunities where that is tested. And in fact, you run into quite a lot of different enemies. But I think that it's also one of the cool things about this game because you're sure as you're running in this very dark yet neon beautiful world that there's an enemy around every corner, but sometimes it's actually a friend. I'm not going to show too much of the game or even go into too much of the story because I think it's best that if you play this game, you play it completely blind. Because honestly, up until the end, I don't really think I understood all of the mechanics or I understood all of the ways that you can navigate this world, that you can solve puzzles. And puzzle solving might be one of my favorite things in this game because they almost somehow direct you in the right way without telling you anything. There is absolutely no dialogue in this game. There is no direction given, but something about the puzzles and the way they're laid out is almost like a path for you to follow. Yes, many of them will take multiple attempts and you will die quite a bit, but it still never feels like you're completely lost. The game in itself never becomes overwhelming, and honestly I have to say the pacing of this game is done really well. It's important in a lot of these Metroidvania style games, specifically, especially those with a lot of puzzles and has you exploring a lot, to not get you bogged down too often. And yeah, you can keep going in a certain direction until you can't go anymore and you don't know what to do. Those are very important times, especially in a gamer's experience. And what I love about this is as soon as you hit that, it seems like it takes very little exploration before you find another path and you find another option, another environment that you haven't explored and more things to do. As you then come across another item that's going to help you back at that original area. And yes, you're going back and forth quite a bit, but that's also kind of the fun of it, is just to explore, to avoid enemies, to keep solving puzzles, and maybe even to kind of discover what's going on in this world. And for me, that was the most intangible aspect of the game. I continued to want to know what was happening, what was going on, what world am I in? Am I in something that replicates the Earth that I'm on now, or is it a completely different area? But I sort of had to just let that go and say, even if I didn't recognize this place, it's okay, it's its own place. The story itself maybe doesn't need to tell itself, or it can remain shrouded in some sort of mystery. I don't have to know all the answers, I just have to enjoy the ride. And I think that that's a big part of what this game offers, is it offers this experience that you haven't really experienced before. And that alone is well worth your time and energy. But when you actually think about the enjoyment that you get just off of the puzzles, off of the incredibly beautiful art style that I absolutely adore, especially when I started the game and I thought it looked kind of antiquated. It looked sort of outdated. And I was kind of over it with a lot of these almost high definition Metroidvanias where, yeah, they look kind of pretty, but then at the other side, they look kind of old. And I don't know, I'm just tired of it at this point. You know, there's so many of them that I've played, and they're fine. They're some really interesting experiences, but if you're not Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, I just don't have time for it anymore. And that's where I was really surprised by this game, because not only are some of the environments just incredibly beautiful and almost mystical in a way. When you enter this incredibly dark area, but you're lit by these glowing worms, and the whole area sort of just has this own life to it. That's amazing. But for me, it was the courageous choice to decide not to add combat. I am sure there is a ton of people in the development process that were like, wait, what? There's going to be no combat? We're not going to have our character fighting against really difficult enemies in like a Souls-like style game, or we're not going to make it more like Castlevania or Dead Cells or something. But instead they decide to make it a Metroidvania meets like Alien Isolation, where you're just trying to run away basically. Yet you know you have to overcome the obstacles of these enemies. You have to deal with them. You just can't really fight them. And so that opens up so many more options than just whacking the crap out of someone. Now don't get me wrong, I love combat in video games, and in fact for me this was one of those things I looked at that I was like, ugh, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. I really struggle with the game where I can't fight. Yeah, I remember playing a game, Clock Tower, way back in the day, where you're basically, as soon as you were encountered by the enemy, you were dead. I hated that game. So many people loved that game, but I hated it for that purpose. So being in that position here, an entire game like this, I wasn't really sure. And let it be known that I really enjoyed it. In fact, I took that as an opportunity to enjoy a different aspect of a game, really looking forward to finding little paths, to solving the puzzles and avoiding combat, realizing that I'm squishy and I have no real abilities to fight. So instead of worrying about dodging and blocking, countering, parrying, all those things that I've gotten so good at, I gotta use my brain, which I'm not so good at that. But also just planning out your paths, where you're going to go, how you're going to approach a next level or a next area. At the same time, you don't want to be so consumed by that you're not enjoying the total experience. I will say performance of this game is fantastic, which is how it has to be. The platforming, it can get a little annoying if I'm being honest. There was a few times where I was kind of irked by it. Although the nice thing is you are instantly respawn right where you fell, and you don't lose any life, so that's really important too. Ultimately, I really enjoyed this game, and I would easily give it a 9 out of 10. Its only downside being its length. It's a relatively short game. I'm not going to say that it's going to take up, 20 hours or something like that, but I think most people will beat it at about 8 to 10 hours, in that range. It's kind of hard to tell when you're rushing through everything like I do for a review. Also, I did play this game 100% in handheld like I play most of my games. I need to mention that a lot more. And I would also say this, should you wait for a sale or get it now? I would get it now. I think it's well worth it, but I can understand if the length is something that you're concerned about, because yeah, sometimes you do feel like for that amount of money, for AA price, you want maybe up to 20 hours, and so I understand waiting for a sale as well. But I'm curious about your thoughts. Have you played this game? Have you experienced it? Is it something that you're interested in getting? Have you never heard of this game? Anything and everything in the comment section is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.